Okay, I'd like to call the October 16th, 2014 regular town board meeting to order and ask all those in attendance to join us in rising for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call. Councilwoman Barnum.
Present.
Councilman Perdicone.
Here.
Councilman Seeley.
Here.
Councilwoman Scrobach.
Here.
Supervisor Bello.
Here.
Attorney for the town.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Barbara, and thank you all for being with us here tonight, and for all of you at home. I want to introduce a new person who's up here with us today. Megan Doherty is filling in from Harder Seacrest tonight as our town attorney, while Laura is out on leave, and so welcome, Megan. She'll be with us tonight and maybe again in the next couple of months. So we welcome Megan to the dais up here. All right, the first order of business, we have a few proclamations and presentations that we're going to give to start the meeting. So I would ask that the members of the town board join me down in front by the podium. So we're going to do this a little backwards from the podium here. But the first group I'd like to call forward to recognize tonight is our good friends, the Friends of the Irondequoit Library, for a special recognition. So if you'd all like to come on up and join us. And this is a real special presentation tonight because obviously one of the biggest priorities, one of the biggest projects that we have going on in the town right now is the construction of our new consolidated library. And as you can see, driving by the town hall campus and being around here, the library is literally growing right before our eyes, and it's growing very quickly next to the building. And it's in large part the folks responsible for making this happen and for really having progress on this and getting this long-term project done are the Friends of the Library and our library board. Their commitment and dedication is second to none, and they deserve our thanks and recognition for all the work that they put in on their own time to come in here and support the library and its functions. And so therefore the town board wanted to present a proclamation tonight to all the hardworking men and women of the Friends of the Library, and I'm going to read the proclamation where it says, whereas the Friends of the Irondequoit Library has been providing support to the Irondequoit Public Library since 1972, and whereas the Friends have expanded their involvement with the Irondequoit community through attendance at town board meetings, as well as participation in the farmers market and other town events, and whereas it's the purpose of the Friends to provide funding for year-round programming to the library, bringing their resources and services to the attention of the public and to assist the library however possible. And whereas the Friends are indispensable in their support of the library through their efforts to raise $7,000 annually for library programming through newly initiated fundraising models, including Friends Walk to Connect, the Family Fun and Trunk Sale. And whereas over the past 3 years, the Friends have supported 513 library programs, 513 programs, reaching over 11,000 children, teens, and adults. And now, therefore, I, Adam J. Bello, Supervisor of the Town of Irondequoit, do hereby proclaim October 19th through the 23rd as Friends of the Library Appreciation Week in the Town of Irondequoit, and I call upon all those gathered here tonight to join me in this special recognition.
I'll make this very brief. Thank you, Supervisor Bello, for this recognition. The Friends of the Irondequoit Public Library will be celebrating National Friends of Libraries Week next week. Volunteers and board members of our group will be at the two branches, Evans and McGraw, and briefly here at the Town Hall, distributing information about membership opportunities and sharing Friends activities. We would also like to express our gratitude to the town for its continued support. in our endeavors. We appreciate
Absolutely.
it.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, and actually, before I let you go, if we could pose for a quick picture with the board, if that would be all right? All right, come on over here.
take it.
I think Sarah will do it, so let's squeeze in here. All right, we'll do a quick photo.
Yes.
There you go. Great.
Sarah, send us one.
All right, thank you so much. All right, thank you. Thank you for all your work. Okay, and actually, I almost forgot. So as part of this presentation, because we are so incredibly proud of the work that they've done, and as I mentioned before, you can see a lot of, the support they gave to the library really gave way to us being able to build this great new facility. So I thought as part of this, I had a little special surprise for our friends, is that we do have an updated time-lapse video of the construction. And so we're going to play for you it's about a month. About the last month of construction includes, you'll see the walls go up, the steel, and we'll also get a sneak peek of the inside of the building and see some of the cement being laid on the second floor. So Nate, if you can hear me and can start the video. And, guys can just join me back up here. Okay, also, for the next proclamation, I just want to say a few opening remarks. We are blessed in Irondequoit to have a number of community-based organizations that dedicate themselves through their volunteer efforts and their fundraising efforts to make Irondequoit a better place and to invest back into the community and provide resources for recreational activities, but also for educational activities and things like that. And tonight we really wanted to honor one of those organizations and the folks who are here with us tonight. And so I invite the members of the Irondequoit Rotary Club forward to receive an award. Okay, and I have a proclamation for them, which I'll read. It says, whereas the Irondequoit Rotary Club, chartered April 26, 1967, has been a vital part of the community for over 45 years. And whereas the Irondequoit Rotary Club has enhanced the quality of life for Irondequoit residents by building playgrounds and improving recreation facilities at Camp Eastman and Rudman Park. And whereas the Irondequoit Rotary, through financial support of programs and services, augments the good work done at the Community Cupboard, Sunset House, and the senior communities at Shire Culverton and St. Anne's. And whereas the Irondequoit Rotary supports students by providing dictionaries to local elementary students and offering annual scholarships to each of Irondequoit's 3 high schools. And whereas November 9th will mark the 30th annual Imagine the Possibilities dinner that has served over 60,000 meals and raised over $500,000 to help fund these worthwhile efforts. So now therefore I, Adam J. Bellows, Supervisor of the Town of Irondequoit, do hereby proclaim November 9th, 2014 as Rotary Club Day in the town of Irondequoit. And I call upon all those gathered to join me in the special recognition tonight.
Thank you very much. My name is Lou Dupree. I'm club president for this year for Irondequoit Rotary, and this is really special because our 30th anniversary for our fundraiser. And because of all of you, make it possible, and it's a team effort, and we really appreciate it. And I do have tickets for the pasta in my pocket, too. So, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
All right, so remember to mark your calendars for November 9th.
We gotta go back down. We're doing the, oh, is this we're doing first?
Can everybody hear me?
We can sit back here. I can't see. We're doing first.
Good. Okay, so the next part of our agenda is last week, the town board spent about 10 hours going through, at our budget workshop sessions, the proposed 2015 Irondequoit town budget. And actually, yeah, if the board wants to just meet me down here. And as a part of that, I wanted to give a small presentation tonight and just go over some of the highlights that are in the 2015 proposal, so that we can have some insight into what went into the budget, and also prepare you for the November 6th public hearing. We'll have a public hearing on the budget on November 6th at 7:35 right back here at Town Hall. So we're going to take you through it a little bit. As we put together the town budget, there were 3 principles that we had. The first one was to hold the tax rate flat. This is critical. Irondequoit pays among the highest property taxes in Monroe County. And in order to be able to progress as a community, encourage the business development and the families to move into town, and also to provide some relief to those who live here, it was important to the town board that we not raise taxes. So the tax rate will stay flat. The second principle is efficiency. We have a responsibility to make sure that we run the town government as efficiently as possible, and that we're organized so that we're effectively using the tax dollars that the residents give us. And the third principle is the rate of return. It's also our job to make sure that in running this government as efficiently as possible, we're giving you the best bang for your buck. Another way to say that is, we want to make sure that the programs we're giving you are at the best value, and we're giving you the best programs and the best services for your hard-earned tax dollars. So those are the principles that went into producing this budget document. I'm going to read this to you. I know it might be a little hard to see from the seats here, but the 2015 budget, this is the town activities by function. We have a $32.2 million budget. You can see $10.7 million is spent on public safety, primarily in the police department and the community development department. We spend $6.1 million on transportation, $200,000 on economic assistance, $4.1 million on culture and recreation, and $6.8 million on home and community programs. So that's the $3.2 million budget. The categories of expense. 40% of that budget is spent on personnel services. That's salaries for our full-time and part-time employees. 27% is on employee benefits. This is the retirement contribution, health care, things of that nature. 21% is supplies and services. These are our contractual services. These are the supplies that we purchase, the materials we purchase to provide the programs and the services that we give residents. And the sources of revenue. 51% of the revenue that we bring in as a town is from property taxes. This is because we are largely a residential community, and so we're supported a little over half of our budget from property taxes. The other sources of revenue, the other big one is sales tax. We take in about 11.4% of our revenue through sales tax. This speaks to the need to bolster our economic development activities in our commercial corridors in town. And this is why you'll see later in the presentation the investments that we're making in our neighborhood and business development department to try to encourage those investments, to try to relieve the pressure on property taxpayers by enhancing some of these other sources of revenue. And taxes, as you know, are always based on, and the tax rate is based on the taxable assessed value of the properties in town. Again, this might be a little hard to see, but essentially total taxable assessed value of properties in town is relatively flat. We did have an increase of $10.5 million from 2014 to 2015, which is a 0.42% increase. That does reverse a previous trend that you could see of a year-over-year slight decrease in the taxable value. So you'll see we are trending back towards the right direction. This chart here is a history of our property tax rates. You'll see at the bottom of the chart, since 2010, the tax rate in the town of Irondequoit for just your town tax has been $6.51 per thousand of your assessed value. That has remained unchanged, and again, you can see at the bottom in 2015, we are again proposing $6.51. So there will be a 0% property tax increase in the 2015 budget. But budgets are much more than a document of numbers and dollars and cents. Budgets are also a statement of priorities. And so I wanted to go over with you today just a few areas where the budget may have changed from previous years and where we put some of our time and efforts. When I talked earlier of efficiency, what I'm really talking about is making sure this government is structured as efficiently as possible. To do that, we took a look at the different departments in town, and we really serve about 6 department functions. We have an administrative department that comprises our controller, human resources, attorney, ICAT, IS, assessor, town clerk. We have a police department, which is our police force, but also houses our animal control services and our school crossing guards. The next department's been known by a few different names over the years. It's the Department of Community Development. We're renaming the department to the Neighborhood and Business Development Department to really speak towards the prime focus and mission of that department. It houses our planning and zoning efforts, our code enforcement, our building services, and our fire marshal. This is our economic development department as well. This is the department where our comprehensive master plan has come from, and this is the department that is really responsible for working with developers and with neighborhood groups to implement that plan. We also have a town courts, which is run by 3 town justices. And then we also have a community services department. This is the department that houses all the bureaus that provide a direct service to the residents in our town. This is where our parks are located, our recreation bureau that includes all our senior programs, our adult, youth, and family programs, our special events. They support other operations like our farmers market. The special events, again, supports our Oktoberfest, our 4th of July activities, events like that. This is also where our cemetery is run. It's also where our public works bureaus come from. This is where we do our roads, sidewalks, plowing, things of that nature. And then again, we have the library, which functions as a department as well. And we put a lot of resources into the library over the last couple of years, primarily in building a new structure here on the Town Hall campus. So to talk about reducing it, part of putting this plan together is to reduce administrative overhead so that we can focus where our priorities are and reorganize in a way so that we can free up some dollars through a reduction in administrative and overhead expenses so we can invest more in some of the priorities. The first priority is the police department. Over the last couple of years prior to this year, Irondequoit had faced a slight increase in certain crimes, certain property and violent crimes, while at the same time faced a 15% reduction in the size of our police force. That, to me, is unacceptable and a correlation that shouldn't exist. So one of the ways that we changed our focus in this budget was to increase the size of the police force by adding a police officer. This will continue our commitment to safe neighborhoods and business districts in town. And I firmly believe that for all the good things that we want to do in town, from keeping our residents and our families here, keep being able to build our business corridor, but also being able to attract new families into town and attract new businesses into town, and to really move forward as a community, you have to lay the foundation of safety. People have to know they're going to be safe. They have to know when they open a business here, they're going to be protected. If they're going to move their family here, they're going to be safe. So this really lays the foundation for all the other good work that we want to do in town. The other part of the town government that we focused on was the neighborhood and business development. This budget fully implements the 2014 reorganization that we've talked about throughout the year. Throughout the year, we hired a new deputy town attorney. We hired a planning and zoning administrator, and we renewed our focus on our economic development and planning activities. And you can already start to see some of the results of that reorganization and refocus with the construction of Starbucks and Chipotle, the construction and opening of Sonic, the new Aldi's underway on Hudson, I-Square, the new library that's being constructed is largely being run out of this department, as well as the comprehensive plan, which we're going to adopt here tonight. So you're already starting to see a lot of benefits of this restructuring. In the Community Services Department, we've also done some administrative reorganization in order to make sure that we're spending your tax dollars as efficiently as possible to provide more resources into the direct services and programs that we're offering while reducing our overhead. As part of that, in our Parks and Recreation Department, we were able to put additional funding into the direct services. So this budget includes a 37% increase in expenditures for the maintenance of our park facilities at Camp Eastman. It provides a 35% increase in the maintenance and enhancements to the fields at McAvoy Park, a 126% increase in expenditure for summer recreation programs, a 22% increase in expenditures for winter recreation programs, a 24% increase in expenditures for fees associated with field trips to the summer camps. These are the admission fees for all our summer camps when we take field trips to Seabreeze and other museums. This allows us to be able to offer those trips to the young people who are taking part in the programs. The hiring of a full-time recreation leader is included in this budget. This is a new position, this full-time position, who's going to work with our recreation supervisor in the recreation department to oversee additional recreation programming. So as we implement these spending adjustments to the programs, we have the proper staff in place to be able to implement these programs. There's also a 59% increase in the summer playground camp counselors, enabling us to open at least one additional summer camp location, which is a service that we offer free of charge to residents. So if you've grown up in town, you know about these playground camps. Over the years, they have been reduced. This will allow us to expand those offerings so that we're able to do a restructuring that allows us not only to save funds in our overhead, but to be able to spend more money on the direct programs and recreational opportunities. The other thing related to Parks and Rec is our 2015 Capital Improvement Plan. This is a plan that's under consideration by the Irondequoit Town Board. We'll be looking to adopt the plan in November. The Capital Improvement Plan will include $143,000 to upgrade outdated playground equipment and renovate and modernize the town's Spray Park and Camp Eastman. The playground equipment, those are the tot lots that are around town. We have a number of playgrounds in our neighborhoods. And some of those equipment in those playgrounds is outdated. And so this is an investment in those playgrounds and in our neighborhoods. There's also $50,000 to construct additional soccer and lacrosse fields at Camp Eastman. It's no secret we have a need for more sports fields in this town. And so we're going to put the resources behind that and use the land that we have available wisely to provide that to our local sports teams. It will also include $100,000 to upgrade our lodges at Camp Eastman, which I think are in sorely need of some repair and some updating and upgrades to keep pace with what some of the other communities are doing. And these lodges, as you know, are also available. We do some programming out of the lodges, but these are the lodges that are available for rental from members of the community, not just in Irondequoit, but the community at large. So to recap, the 2015 priorities in this budget was a 0% tax increase. We kept spending despite all those targeted investments that I laid out a few minutes ago. Total spending is increasing below 2%. So we're able to hold the line on spending, hold the line on taxes, while being able to increase our direct services relative to our law enforcement, economic development activities, and our recreational activities and programs. Okay, so that's the outline. The budget is available on the town's website in full, and these facts and figures will also be available on the website as well. If you have any questions, I'd encourage you to email me at supervisor@irondequoit.org or give me a call at Town Hall at 336-6034. And we'll also be having a public hearing on the town budget on November 6th at 7:35 here at Town Hall in the Broderick Room. And the budget would be scheduled for adoption by the board at the November town board meeting. Okay, so thank you.
Did he turn some of those lights up? We don't have lights on up here. Oh, there they are. She got them. Thank you.
Oh, I need to turn that off. All right, thank you everyone for your patience through that, and always like to add a little technology to these meetings as well. Makes them a little more fun. So, next order of business is public input. I don't think we had anyone signed up to speak. Was anybody here who wanted to address the board tonight? Anybody who didn't have a chance to sign up wanted to address the board? No? Okay.
Next order of business is the financial report.
The financial results for the first 3 quarters of the year, the period ending September 30th, 2014. Total expenditures and encumbrances are $21,372,000, 67% of budget, and that's lower than the 75% of the year that has elapsed. Actual expenditures are $20,045,000 and encumbrances $1,326,000. In the general fund, the expenses are $12,248,000, 66.5% of budget, below the percent of the year that has elapsed. Those expenditures in the general fund break down as follows: $11,714,000 of actual expenditures and $535,000 of encumbrances. Collectively, the expenses in the highway funds are $4,510,000, 79% of budget. That's slightly above the percent of the year that has elapsed. As you can see, the Highway 4 expenditures, Highway 4 Winter Maintenance Fund expenditures have leveled off, and they are basically on budget now. Contributing to the sizable expenditures in Highway 3 are installment, debt, and equipment parts. In Highway 1, there are notable gas and fuel encumbrances. Actual expenditures in the other major funds are lower than the percent of the year that has elapsed. The library has expended $1,296,000, 67% of budget. The sewer is at 58.9% of budget, and that equates to $2,265,000. The expenses in stormwater drainage is the expenditures are $295,000, and that's 37.5% of budget. Revenue. The general fund has received 80.7% of budget, and that equates to $14,744,000. $10.3 million of the revenue is real estate tax. $224,000 is payment in lieu of tax. To date, the town has received 5 months of sales tax, $1,252,000. 3 months of mortgage tax, $114,000, and more recently, the town received 100% of state aid for a total of $613,000. We recently received 6 months of franchise cable TV revenue, and that is $370,000. Regarding the other revenue line items, cemetery, recreation program fees, bails and fines, and other sources of revenue have received at least 75% of budget, at least the percent of the year that has elapsed, the amount representing the percent of the year that has elapsed. Property maintenance is the primary driver of the other sources of revenue. The favorability there has been recorded at $237,000, and that's 132% of the $180,000 budget. Bails and fines revenue contains a one-time $100,000 code violations fine from the Medley Center. For the total town, $27.1 million, or 85.8% of revenue, has been received to date. $16.3 million is real estate tax. The library has received 96.9% of its revenue, $1,868,000. $5,189,000, or 91%, has been recorded by the highway. $3.8 million is in for sewer. This report signifies the end of the third quarter. Therefore, on page 3 is the third quarter summary in comparison to the prior 6 years. This is a quarterly comparison that is presented here. The expenditures are detailed by fund in the top third of the page. The percent of budget spent and encumbered for the town ranges, that's this year and the prior 6 years, range from 66% to 73%. This year, the town is on the low end of that range at 67.2%. For the general fund alone, the expenditures range from 65 to 72%. 2014 is on the low end of that range at 66.5%. The middle third of the page contains the sources of revenue for the general fund. The bottom third of the page shows the revenue trend for the other funds, and the very last line shows the total revenue trend. On the middle section, the revenues for the general fund for the prior 6 years reveal a trend from 75 to 86%. The general fund revenue is in the middle of that range at 81%. Revenue for the town as a whole, that's displayed on the bottom third of the page, trends from 83 to 91%. So currently, we are low to the middle of that range at 86%. What I'd like you to note is that for 2012, there were several months in 2012, the town carried over $350,000 of insurance recovery revenue that resulted from the Salt Barn fire that occurred in 2012. That insurance recovery caused the 2012 total revenue to be unusually high at 91%. Without that anomaly for 2012, you would note that the 2014 revenue is one of the highest of the years presented. And this concludes the financial report for the month of September.
Great. Thanks, Annie.
You're welcome.
Are there any questions or comments? No? All right. Seeing none, can I have a motion to accept the financial report? To approve the report? Motion. And a second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Approval of minutes. September 2nd, 2014, special town board meeting, public hearing.
Can I have a motion?
Moved.
And a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? No? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Motion carries.
September 11th, 2014, the workshop meeting.
I have a motion? And a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries.
September 18th, 2014, the regular town board meeting.
Have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Okay, any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Items for board action. Item 10A, 2014-1, authorizing an agreement with the Bonadio Group for annual audits of the town's financial statements and employee deferred compensation plan for 2014 through 2017.
Can I have a motion?
Moved.
And a second?
Second.
Okay. So I'll give a little background on this resolution. This resolution authorizes the hiring of an auditing firm for the town of Arundecoit. And to go through the procurement policy for that, we did do a request for proposal committee. And the RFP committee that we had was comprised of myself, the attorney for the town, Annie Seeley, our comptroller, Beth Wattrow, the Director of Human Resources, and Dave Seeley was the representative from the town board. The five of us met with three local firms who are all qualified and sat through several hours of presentations. And at the end of the day, there's a unanimous recommendation after the scoring to recommend that the board approve hiring the Bonadio Group. Primarily, the reasons for this recommendation rested largely on their history and background in working with municipal governments and doing municipal auditing work. Their breadth of experience far outweighed their competitors, and there was a level of comfort that we're making the right decision going forward by using this firm. And so this would be for a 3-year agreement, and for the board, so. I'm sorry. 4-year agreement, I'm sorry, it's a 4-year agreement, that's right. Are there any questions or comments from the board? No? Okay. So with that, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Motion carries.
Item 10A, 2014-2, adopting a negative declaration for the town's comprehensive master plan update.
Okay. Can I have a motion?
Moved.
And a second. Okay, before we consider this resolution, I'd like to call up Kathy Spencer, who is from our town engineer, LaBelle and Associates, who's done a lot of work helping us through the seeker process for the comprehensive master plan, and we've asked Kathy to give a presentation to the board and the public. So,
Good evening, everyone.
good evening.
I'm going to go through the assessment we completed for the environmental review under the State Environmental Review Quality Review Act, for the comprehensive master plan update. We completed this review by preparing parts 2 and 3 of the environmental assessment form. You may recall you saw part 1, I believe it was back in August. The meat of the evaluation is, though, in parts 2 and 3. What I'd like to do is review our findings by really walking you through the document. I think you've all had a chance to review it, but I think it's worth the time to go through the impacts and the benefits of the plan and our findings in this environmental review. Before I get started on that, I just want to remind you that the purpose of the environmental review was just that, to identify significant or potentially significant adverse environmental impacts. We were not revisiting the recommendations of the plan, and we were not evaluating the merits of the plan in any way. We were simply looking at the environmental impacts in compliance with the state regulations for doing so. I want to just cut right to the chase at the beginning here. The master plan update is basically a document that provides a framework guiding future actions and redevelopment and development in the town in the future in a way that is environmentally protective, in a manner that enhances community character, and also looks at the sustainability of these actions. So most of the impacts that we identified were positive rather than negative. I think that's important to be stated right off the bat. Basically, we did not identify any significant adverse environmental impacts and are therefore recommending a negative declaration be considered by the town board. We're going to come back to all that in a minute. I guess the last thing I'd like to say is, by way of introduction, is all of this is written out, and anything that isn't clear to you or if there's lingering questions, please refer to the written documentation because it's pretty comprehensively outlined in those pages. Okay, I'm going to start with part 2 of the environmental assessment form, which is basically a checklist which identifies potential impacts. The form, just so you note, is set up really to identify adverse impacts. It has no room to talk about or look at positive impacts. So everything that you're checking as a yes means there's a potential adverse impact. And positive impacts really kind of get lost in the review. For that reason, I'm going to go through a few of those before we start through the negative potential adverse impacts. So there's about, I think, 18 impacts in part 2. You'll see right on page 1 of part 2, impact on land is the first impact that's looked at. In filling out this form, we had to decide whether impacts were small versus moderate versus large. You can see from the checkboxes on part 1 that most of the impacts on land were either none or small. There were 2 that we identified as potentially large, which dealt with increased erosion and coastal erosion hazard areas. And again, I guess before going through this form and the subsequent narrative, I'd just like to point out that we were very conservative in our review. We took a town-wide look. We wanted to look at everything in a conservative fashion, but any projects that come about as a result of the comprehensive plan update will have their own seeker review. Turning to page 2, the impact on geological features. This box we checked no right off the bat. It was not relevant to the adoption of the comprehensive plan, and therefore we did not have to look at the sub-questions under geological features. Number 3, impact on surface water. You can see most of those impacts, again, were either considered none or small. We did check 2 impacts as potentially moderate, and those were construction within or near a wetland or watercourse, and again, soil erosion. And I'll be coming back to all of this. On page 3 of 10, the impact on groundwater was determined to be small. All small, no moderate impacts were identified under that section. Number 5, impact on flooding. Small and moderate impacts were identified. The only moderate impact was the potential for development in a 100-year floodplain. There are 100-year floodplains in the town, so we put that, we checked that as potentially moderate. The number 6 on page 4, impacts on air, that was a no. Number 7, impacts on plants and animal. All of the sub-questions were answered as small or none. We did not identify any potential moderate impacts on habitat and wildlife. Impact on agricultural resources, number 8, that was a no. Impact on aesthetic resources. Again, there's a lot of positive impacts that will come about as a result of the plan, but the form doesn't want to hear about them, so that was a no. The number 10, impact on historic and archaeological resources, we did check yes. Everything was considered small or none. Number 11 on page 7, impact on open space and recreation. There are no, that we just checked that no for no adverse impacts. Impact on critical environmental areas which are designated. There are none in the town, so we checked no. I'm now on page 8, impact on transportation. Most of these were checked as small or none. We did check a moderate for projected traffic may exceed capacity of existing road network, and I'll be coming back to that. Number 14, impact on energy, we checked as a no. Number 15, impact on noise, odor, and light, again, no adverse impacts. I'm now up to page 9 of 10, impact on human health. Most of these were checked as none or small potential impacts. There were 2 that we checked as moderate, potentially moderate, and those were associated with possible remediation sites or possible sites that were used for solid or hazardous waste disposal in the town. On the last page of this Part 2 form, there is a question on the consistency with community plans. As you know, this is a proposed update of the comprehensive plan, so we did check no to the question, which was the proposed action is not consistent with adopted land use plans. That's a double negative, that's why it's a no. And finally, consistency with community character. This we did check no. So we didn't answer the sub-questions, but it was such an important factor that we did end up writing a narrative about this in the Part 3. So that's the checklist that comprises the Part 2 of the form. The seeker regulations require that any moderate or large impacts are discussed in Part 3. Part 3 is more of a narrative than a checklist. We did do that. There is a form associated with Part 3. It's a 2-page form. If you see that in your packet, the first page is really just the attachment. it says see attachment because we're going to go through that narrative, which explains the town's reasoned elaboration for why significant adverse impacts will not occur. So instead of trying to put it there, we attached it. And part 2 of the form is really just a certification of the town's determination of significance, which we're recommending as a negative declaration. Okay, that brings us up to the Part 3 attachment, which again, I have explained as a narrative. I think it's about 17 or 18 pages. I'm not going to read it to you, but I'm going to try to pull out the significant nuggets. There are a few sentences I'd like to read to you just because they're either good summary statements or they're important. But let me go through the sections in this Part 3 attachment.
Go ahead.
Okay. The Part 3 attachment begins again with the determination of significance. This is basically the bottom line. I've already talked about it. But basically, it says that we've reviewed each of the potential impacts identified in Part 2 of the form and compared them against the criteria in the code, the New York State Code of Rules and Regulations, Part 617.7, which are the seeker regulations, and none of the impacts that we identified were large or significant, and therefore a environmental impact statement is not necessary and a negative declaration is recommended. Everything else I'll go through will support that statement. It's really the conclusion, but I didn't want to leave it at the end. It seems more important to be right up in the beginning. The next section there on page 1 of this attachment just talks about the organization of the Part 3 attachment because it is so long. Again, it's the Part 3 attachment has been prepared in accordance with the Seeker Environmental Review Regulations, the DEC's new online workbook, and other guidance provided by DEC. There's a more or less a table of contents at the bottom of page 1 that shows how the document's organized, and basically the list of potential project impacts follows the Part 2 form. The next section that starts on page 2 and I think goes through 2 and 3 is important because what we did there is we took the actual regulatory criteria from Part 617.7 and linked our narrative and evaluation to those criteria. There's 12 criteria that DEC enumerates in Part 617, which they consider indicators of significant adverse impacts on the environment. And we went through those 12 and linked it to the narrative discussion that it follows. For example, I'm going to just read the first one. An indicator of significant adverse impacts would be a substantial adverse change in the existing air quality, ground or surface water quality or quantity, traffic or noise levels, a substantial increase in solid waste production, a substantial increase in the potential for erosion, flooding, leaching, or drainage problems. Under that criteria, we indicated no significant adverse impacts, and C, I think there's 5 sections listed there, one of which will go over surface water, one of which will talk about flooding, traffic, etc. So the pages 2 and 3 of this narrative go through the 12 criteria that are actually spelled out in DEC's regulations and link the paragraphs that follow to those criteria. I'm now on page 4. This section talks about the master plan update itself. It gives a bit of background information and what was relevant in the master plan update to the environmental review. Basically, the proposed action that's being reviewed under Seeker is the town board's adoption of this update to the master plan prepared in 1985, I believe. That's nearly 30 years ago. So that's the proposed action. The master plan update that we're looking at acknowledges that the town of Arundecoit is largely built out. It does not include a laundry list of projects or, colored boxes assigned to different areas of the town that you may have seen in other traditionally prepared land use plans. Basically, right up front, it's acknowledged that the town's built out and that redevelopment is what will be emphasized in the plan. In terms of redevelopment, there are 8 areas that are called out and visions are presented for redevelopment in those areas. Those areas are East Ridge Road and then 7 waterfront areas: Somerville, Pattonwood, River Rail, Seabreeze, Bay Bridge, Plateau, and LaSalle's Landing. They're all identified as waterfront opportunity areas where this redevelopment may take place. This is important because it's really the only specific areas that we could focus on when we were looking at impacts to water resources or endangered species. We were looking for something that we could look at in detail as opposed to the town in general. I guess I'd like to read this sentence at the bottom of page 4. It's important to note that although redevelopment is proposed in these areas, the master plan update merely sets out potential future actions or projects. No site-specific developments are recommended. Any site-specific development actions proposed at a future date will be subject to a separate environmental review under seeker and will need to comply with all local, state, and federal environmental laws, regulations, and permit processes. That I'm going to probably want to repeat multiple times throughout my presentation, but keep it in mind and then I won't have to. The master plan update, in addition to the fact that there's going to be separate seeker reviews, the master plan update is basically loaded with community design standards and sustainable design standards that try to guide development in, again, this way that will enhance character and protect the environment. I'm going to also read this sentence because I think it's important. Much of the master plan update itself is designed as mitigation against the adverse impacts of future redevelopment or continuing patterns of existing development. Therefore, potential impacts will be less with the adoption of the master plan update than without it. So that sort of gave a broad overview of the master plan update in relation to its environmental impacts. I'm now on page 5, section 3.0.2. I'm not going to read too much about this. This is the process followed to update the comprehensive master plan. Basically, as you know, there was a consultant team, Clark Patterson Lee. They started the process in 2008. There was a lot of public involvement. There was a steering committee, community outreach, vision and goal setting, and basically recently there were 3 public hearings in August and September to get additional public input on the plan. There's also a website and an email address, so there was quite a bit of public input over this 6-year process in writing the plan. The next section deals with these positive impacts and benefits of the plan. Since they're not discussed or pulled out by the form, I thought it was important to go through a few of these. Basically, the adoption of the master plan update will have a significant positive impacts on community character, visual and aesthetic resources, economic development potential, walkability and pedestrian/biking facilities, traffic flow, recreation, and open space, as well as natural resources. These benefits will be realized by policy program initiatives, design standards, zoning changes, tax incentives, site plan review processes, building requirements, and other actions recommended by the master plan update. The rest of that section goes into those benefits in a little bit further detail. For example, the first section talks about the visual impacts and community character. Basically, the master plan update has a number of recommendations that will serve to improve the visual appearance of the town. The full spectrum of aesthetic issues are touched upon, including street trees, public art, lighting, overhead utility lines, signage, clutter, gateways, parking areas, commercial site design, etc. There is also an entire section devoted to community design standards, things like site planning, form, scale, and massing, landscaping, street trees, facades, that kind of thing. The rest of that section that continues on page 7 talks about the benefits to pedestrian facilities and walkability, the traffic improvements, open space, including a reference to the Parks and Recreation Master Plan, which is incorporated into the Master Plan update by reference, and natural resources. And I'm going to assume that you all are aware of all the benefits associated with the plan. The final section before impacts are looked at is a section called environmental protection. Basically, this is a twofold section, twofold points that I'd like to make. One is, again, the plan is chock full of these design standards and sustainable green infrastructure recommendations. And on top of that, you have all the local, federal, and state environmental protections still in place. Again, that includes seeker. Nothing in the master plan eliminates the need for seeker for any proposed development. Nothing gets a free pass because of this seeker. A hard look will still be taken at all the potentially significant environmental impacts associated with any future redevelopment activities. And the town will continue to utilize seeker as its primary mechanism for identifying and mitigating environmental impacts. In addition to seeker, the town, as you're aware, has environmental protection overlay districts. They are designed to protect things such as steep slopes, water courses, floodplains, wetlands, woodlots, and coastal areas. In addition, there's the Irondequoit Bay Harbor Management Law, the town's participation in the Irondequoit Bay Harbor Technical Committee, the local waterfront revitalization plan, and all the other federal and state regulatory programs that are in place. I'm now at the section, I'm on page 9 of the discussion of potential project impacts. When trying to determine the significance of impacts, DEC and the guidance in seeker provides a list of factors to consider, and some of the more relevant ones are the magnitude of the impact, the likelihood of its occurrence, the geographic extent, and the setting. So when you have a town like the town of Irondequoit that's largely built out, and on top of that you have this adoption of a master plan update that has all these design standards, environmental protections, and green infrastructure recommendations, basically those things limit the magnitude, the likelihood occurrence, and the geographic extent of any potential impacts. You don't have a lot of area that's going to be impacted, and on top of that you have these design standards pulling back any development-related impacts. The sections here, the first section was potential impacts on land. As you may recall, in part 2, the potential moderate impacts that we identified on land were for erosion and coastal erosion hazard areas. Basically, the plan has those sustainable strategies and recommendations. The green infrastructure practices include things such as bioswales, landscaping, pervious pavement, rain gardens, etc., which allow for stormwater to be managed in a sustainable manner. The coastal erosion hazard areas, there's a discussion on page 10 that basically DEC designates these areas. They were designated in the mid-'80s and mapped. They're now outdated, but the state's in the process of updating those maps. There will be permits for development in coastal erosion hazard areas. And on top of that, of course, the town has its EPODs and its own site plan review requirements for any development that might occur in coastal areas. And again, some of those redevelopment areas, the waterfront ones, will end up being located in coastal areas, not necessarily erosion areas. I'm now up to the section on potential impacts on surface water. There's a lot of wonderful water resources in the town. The lake, the Irondequoit Bay, the Genesee River, as well as wetlands and streams. The moderate impacts identified for surface water were construction near wetlands and watercourses, and again, the erosion. We talked about the erosion a little bit. The potential impacts to surface water, to the wetlands and water resources are addressed in the visions for the waterfront development areas, redevelopment areas, in exactly the visions for how those areas can be redeveloped. Basically, preservation of natural resources and open space is incorporated into the vision for the waterfront opportunity areas. And again, any development will be subject to SEQR, the town's EPODs, the LWRP, and the Irondequoit Bay Harbor regulations. I'm now up to section 3.4, potential impacts on groundwater. There were no moderate impacts identified in this impact category. Basically, the discussion was placed in the document because DEC considers there to be a principal aquifer in the town, or primary/principal aquifer, and that is associated with the Arando-Genesee aquifer along Irondequoit Bay. So in the eastern portion of the town, there's some lake-related sand and silt that are recharge areas for groundwater. And so it's an important issue. As you know, most of the residents get their water from public water service, not from wells. So it has a little less importance to the impacts that could possibly occur. Again, those green infrastructure measures we talked about will allow for natural infiltration of contaminants and pollutants in stormwater runoff, and therefore reduce any levels of pollutants that are reaching groundwater systems. Potential impacts on flooding, section 3.5. Again, when you look at the town, there's almost nothing in 95% of the town. All of the floodplains are along the lake shore, some areas of Irondequoit Bay shoreline. The floodplain is relatively narrow. So again, that's the likelihood of occurrence, and the geographic extent is rather limited in the town. We have EPOD 4, which is the purpose of which is to prevent private and public losses due to flood conditions by providing this additional level of review in EPOD permit applications. And again, you have SEQR and the other state and federal laws and regulations that are in place. The potential impacts on plants and animals, there were no moderate potential impacts identified for this category. Again, the town's largely developed. Vegetative areas that are currently existing will remain in place, which will mean no additional loss of habitat. And any of those areas that are redeveloped along the waterfront will be protected by the development criteria in the master plan update. I am now at the bottom of page 13, potential impacts to historic and archaeological resources. Basically, since most of the town was built out by the 1970s, there's very few areas where development has not occurred and where some level of ground disturbance has not occurred. This means that the likelihood of intact archaeological resources is fairly low. But however, the state considers much of the town an archaeologically sensitive area. So we discuss that in this section. We also discuss that historic and archaeological resources are protected by the New York State Historic Preservation Act of 1980 and the National Historic Preservation Act of 1966, as well as SEQR. The master plan update does refer to the preservation of historic resources as a primary goal for maintaining healthy neighborhoods. I'd just like to read the following. Preserve neighborhoods, natural surroundings, and architectural and historic resources within all residential and commercial settings. So bottom line, there were no significant adverse environmental impacts that were identified to archaeological or historic resources. Potential impacts to transportation on page 14. Basically, we talk a lot about the East Ridge Road corridor in this section. The master plan update does talk about redevelopment along East Ridge Road and including possible higher density mixed-use development. There's some data in the master plan update itself about how that level of higher density would affect traffic and its relatively low impacts. I guess what I wanted to talk about or point out to you from this section is there are numerous strategies in the master plan update that are directed at improving traffic flow and pedestrian safety. I think almost 25% of the recommendations, which I think there were 114 in the plan, suggest improvements to pedestrian, bicycle trail, and public transport facilities in the town of Arundecoit. On top of that, there's recommendations that are designed to improve traffic operation. These include reducing the number and severity of conflict points, improving the physical design of pedestrian crossings, improving signal location and operation to maximize traffic flow, providing better options for bicyclists and pedestrians, and altering roadway configurations to address deficiencies. The section here ends with a discussion that the Monroe County Department of Transportation will still be looking for traffic studies along East Ridge Road because it is a county highway. 2 more sections to go. I'm on the bottom of page 15, potential impacts on human health. Here we're looking at those potential areas that have hazardous waste or solid waste disposal from past activities. The town is aware of where these sites are. DEC has a number of websites that have records for these sites. Basically, any environmental review completed under SEQR takes a look at them, and the master plan update didn't talk much about this type of area, but basically the environmental protections that are already in place and the SEQR review will take care of any potential impacts. The final section discusses potential impacts to community character. Again, this was the section where there were no small or moderate impacts identified. I would like to read a sentence here right there in the middle of the first paragraph. Although implementation of the master plan update will have the potential to modify the physical character of the town, it calls for human-scaled development that respects and enhances community character and maintains the current context of the town's development patterns. Basically, what we're saying here is nothing in the master plan update calls for a significant change in existing development patterns. Yes, the master plan does envision and allow for some higher density residential and commercial development in appropriate areas, but this is always discussed in terms of consistency with the scale and setting of the surrounding neighborhood and in areas where it can be accommodated by street infrastructure. Again, there's not many tracts of vacant land available in the town, so we're mostly talking about redevelopment, and most of what the master plan update is recommending are activities that would support alternative uses and flexible standards to allow those alternative developments in character with the existing neighborhood where they would be proposed. Let's see. I guess I will just conclude with, again, the multitude of design standards and green building practices put forth by the master plan update are protective of the environment and would take in, and seeker would be in effect for any new development, whether it be redevelopment or higher density uses. That brings me to the conclusion, and I hope supports our recommendation for the adoption of a negative declaration.
Thank you, Kathy, for that in-depth and detailed presentation. But I think that's important, though, for the community and for the board to understand what it is we're looking at with the comprehensive plan and to understand the work that went in behind this and the thought and attention to detail. So I appreciate the presentation and ask, does the board have any questions?
I just have all I can say is wow. As we were reviewing this at the workshop, and now I'm sitting here going, just in 3 sentences, just describe the process that you went through and how many databases you referred to. I mean, I just wrote down a few: the Environmental Remediation Database, the DEC database, National Heritage Database. So you went through all of these databases and extrapolated info
Yeah,
for
there's-
Arundequoit.
Right. There's all kinds of resources online and in mapping resources that we have available to us. Some of them are provided by agencies. I can't tell you the number of databases we looked at. DEC has a new online tool where I selected the entire town of Arundequoit as my area of interest, and it gives me everything from endangered species, floodplains. It gives me a lot of location-based resources that are included in the town, and I looked at this on a town-wide basis. So it was hours and hours of work, and then just the writing to try to clearly present the findings was another hours and hours.
Appreciate that detail, and thanks for letting us know that the burrowing beetle is a endangered species.
That was the only state
Which,
mammal or
yeah, I
animal.
was-
There are no mammals, but that I guess it's the burrowing beetle. Beetle counts as an animal.
right, and I'm not being funny, but somebody said that they spotted eagles somewhere in Arundequoit. Is that true? that
I
somewhere?
haven't. I didn't see any records of that. I can tell you, I've done a lot of work with eagles lately because I'm working on a wind farm project. The populations have been increasing throughout upstate New York incredibly in the last 10 years. So we're going to see them more. I wouldn't be surprised. Arundequoit's perfect for eagle nesting. You just need some tall trees.
Between the hawk and
Arundequoit Bay.
but thank you, so, yeah.
I think they're in Arundequoit Bay.
There's a bald
Pretty
eagle
sure,
there.
bald eagles, yeah.
Oh, is there?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because the
The,
development's
Oh,
been planned
Penfield
around it.
Oh, okay.
Enfield side, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
Central, right.
Okay, that's why it didn't come up
That's
when I
why.
selected the town. That's exciting.
And just to clarify that the process for, the secret process for adoption of this plan is obviously just for adoption of the plan, and any additional future redevelopment and such will also require,
Its own site-specific, yes, exactly. There's nothing gets a free pass if it's mentioned or envisioned in the plan. That doesn't give it any standing under seeker in the future.
sure, yes, thank you.
Just a quick one. So this was all sent to the Monroe County's Department of Planning, which was great. Did they raise any issues?
They did not. We heard the town did not get any substantive comments back from Monroe County itself. They did refer it to their Department of Transportation, and the Department of Transportation came back, I think, with a handful of minor edits and suggestions to improve the traffic-related recommendations that are in the plan. They had a few suggestions on additional agencies that could be coordinated with in implementation, but nothing substantial to the plan itself.
Great. Thank you. Great presentation.
Thanks.
You tell that you know it all by heart.
Great. And I just have Kathy, one quick follow-up as well.
Okay.
All right, so, and, given the broad nature of comprehensive plans and the lack of project specifics to consider during the environmental review under seeker, a negative declaration, in my view, seems appropriate for this plan. Have other communities taken this approach?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm aware of a couple communities here in Monroe County, as well as the larger region. It's very common for towns or villages to follow the environmental assessment form negative declaration approach. Of course, every community, their existing conditions, level of development is different, and the recommendations of their plan are different, so direct comparisons are a little difficult, but basically you have to get at those potential environmental impacts, and that's what we've done.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Anything else?
Any other questions?
No, I'm good.
Enough?
Can I just ask, the final sentence is, the master plan will not have any significant adverse environmental impacts, and an environmental impact statement will not be prepared. How much longer is the environmental impact statement relative to this?
You know, I was thinking about that on the way over. I think the meat of any environmental impact statement is right here in front of your eyes with 17 pages of discussion. That sometimes when you get into an environmental impact statement, there's a lot of sections that are required that, you know, we'd have to talk about we'd have to regurgitate all the existing conditions. Alternatives would have to be looked at in greater detail. But all of that is in the plan itself. So I actually don't like the idea of preparing an impact statement for a comp plan. Some communities end up establishing thresholds such that if a development that's proposed comes in over that threshold, it gets a secret review, but if it comes in under, it's got that free pass I was talking about. So it's a quite a difficult task to do it. Not difficult in that this wasn't, but just how to write it and how to establish thresholds and how to somehow figure out what's going to happen 10 years down the road as a result of these recommendations. It's kind of nebulous.
Thank you.
Okay. Great. Are there any other questions by the board members? No? All right. Seeing none, thank you, Kathy. So with that, I think, Barbara, I did do a motion in a second, correct? About 45 minutes ago? Okay. So we'll do, all right, without any other questions or discussion by the board, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Item 10A, 2014-3, approving the Town of Arundequoit's comprehensive master plan update.
Can I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All right, great, thank you. And this is actually one of the most exciting moments, I think, of tonight's meeting, and actually since we began this journey several months ago, and in my 9 or 10 months so far in office. The comprehensive plan is a process that started, as a community process that started a number of years ago to create a community document that would be a vision for the town of Arundequoit, a vision that takes stock in what do we have today, what does our community have to offer, what do we want to look like as a community in the future, and then what steps are we going to take to get from here to there. And the comprehensive plan addresses really all aspects of community life, makes over 100 policy recommendations on new ways of enhancing economic development opportunities, protecting open space and environmental assets, enhancing recreational opportunities, and attracting new visitors and families and revitalizing our neighborhoods. And as we outlined this budget presentation earlier tonight in your town, taking on a $32 million budget, it seems irresponsible to me for a town to move forward spending those kind of resources without a plan in place to tell people where are we going, what do we want to do. And so what this plan really does is create a community-led document that gives us over 100 recommendations that the board can now prioritize and start acting to get to this and start fulfilling this vision and get to this place that we want to be in the future. So I couldn't be happier to be at this point tonight. I do want to thank a number of people who participated in crafting this plan over the last several years, and particularly over the last couple of months. First and foremost, I want to thank the residents in the town of Arundequoit. Since we started this journey back in July, we've literally met with dozens and dozens of residents. We've had numerous public hearings, emails, phone calls, meetings here at Town Hall from a very engaged citizenry, business leaders who also participated in forums and work groups, and again spoke at our hearings. And so first and foremost, to everyone who participated, my heartfelt thanks on behalf of the board, but also on behalf of your fellow residents for the time that you put into this. I also want to thank, and I'm going to go through a list, which is always a dangerous proposition because I know I'm going to leave somebody out, but I'm going to try to do this anyways. And so if I forget to acknowledge someone, please jump in and please know that you have our gratitude as well. But I want to thank the town board for all their hard work in this over the last couple of months. This is a lengthy document that we've gone through a number of times, and I know they've provided invaluable input to the production of the plan. I also want to thank Nick Weatherby and all of our department heads at Town Hall and all of our staff. All of them I know have gone through the plan, made a number of recommendations, and a lot of things were incorporated into this plan with their wealth of knowledge and experience in the town. Particularly when I'm talking about our town staff, I'm talking about Carrie Ivers, our planning and zoning administrator. Carrie was brought on our team earlier this year with her first assignment and responsibility would be to help us complete this plan. Carrie actually worked on this plan back in 2008, I think, in her previous employment with Clark Patterson, and we were lucky enough to snatch her earlier this year and have her on board our team. And so Carrie and the staff in Nick's department did fantastic. And our thanks to Clark Patterson. They worked with us along the way. That's Dan Dupre and his team that included Justin Steinbach. Our town attorneys from Harder, Seacrest, and Emory spent a lot of time with us, Laura Smith, Ed Primo, and Megan Doherty, and all their help. I also want to thank the Irondequoit Chamber of Commerce, their president, Fred Squicciarini, for co-hosting a forum with us earlier this year to really cement and articulate why this comprehensive plan is important, particularly in business development and growing that tax base in Irondequoit, so that we can tell future developers what it is we're looking for in Irondequoit and lay out a clear path and vision so it's crystal clear what we want to see developed in our town. Also, Tony Sortino and Dan Berkeley from the Chamber as well for participating. I want to thank our planning, zoning, and conservation boards. They all poured through these documents, offered recommendations as well, and offered some great advice. Like I said, this plan started a number of years ago. The original committee that included Diane Zacharin, John DiPaolo, and Dan Berkeley, who I mentioned before from the Chamber. They put a lot of work into this. I also want to thank the previous administration, who spent a lot of time, 2 administrations ago, starting this process, starting the work groups, and really rolling up their sleeves and doing a job here. And that would be Supervisor Mary Ellen Heyman, Gail Bello, Debbie Evans, Stephanie Aldersley, and John Perticone, who's still with us today, for all of their work. And for all of their work on this. This was really a collaborative effort. It's a community document, which is important. We put it through all these public hearings and really took our time because it has to be a community document. It needs to show that the community supports what we're doing, and this is the vision to move forward. So I want to thank everybody again for their work. Does anybody have any other comments or questions they want to throw out? Lori?
Yeah, well, I'd love to, because I feel the same way as you. I'm very excited about this. When I came on board, I was really concerned that there wasn't a comprehensive plan in place, because valuable community assets can be unrealized or hidden if you have haphazard or unplanned development, and that this town, it tends to be deliberate and proactive in guiding the future is really what I want to be a part of, and I'm thrilled about it. We have a lot to protect in Irondequoit and promote, and this plan will help us to be good stewards. And I love the way it provides for people in every chapter of their life to be able to have a high quality or desirable quality of life here. I want to commend Adam and the team on producing what I think is an excellent document and seeking so much public input on the process. And what I was really looking for, and I was so happy to find it all the way through, was, you always expect it to be about the future, because that's what planning is about. You don't plan the past, but the philosophy of conservation and sustainability and stewardship throughout the plan is, it just makes me very happy to vote to pass this. I think it's very important because of where we're located to protect those things, and that the staff has such a good stewardship. So congratulations, Supervisor.
Thank you, Lori.
Well, yes, I will make a comment that obviously this is, I believe too, this is a great document for the town. Carrie, you and I have been here since the beginning, huh? Jeez. We are definitely a better town with it than without it. And I just want to make sure that there is going to be responsibilities for this board or future boards to take a look at this plan and update it, to continuously look at it, update it, and keep it going. We don't want to wait another 30 years. But if we take on, whether it's us or future boards take on that responsibility, I believe updating this document is going to be very essential to the town.
Here, here.
So, and thank you for everybody that did a lot of hard work to this. I'm very supportive of this document where it stands right today. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
I just like to add that I was pretty amazed that 30 years had gone by, and in comparison to other towns, I really didn't understand what a comprehensive plan was, because I thought we had it. We had all these buildings, and we had. So I must thank the everyone, ditto Adam, on your list, as well as, most importantly, the community, most importantly, the businesses, and that due diligence was taken by this board, and the commitment to take this document and finally finalize it. And it's been long overdue, and now we will have a strategic planning, and we look forward to moving Arundequite in the forward motion that it always has been going, but now we have rectified it by having a written document to support that. So, thank you.
Thanks, Irina. Okay.
I'll just add, Adam, you did what you said you were going to do, and I'm glad we got it done. And I'm also glad we just didn't go through the motions. There was a lot of work that went into this, as you saw tonight, especially. Given a lot of the work was done several years ago, we could have probably just rehashed that and, I guess, gone through the motions and done the bare minimum. But I'm glad that there was a lot of thought put into this. I think it's a reflection of where we want the community to go, but also it's the reflection of the community input that took place over those several years. So I'm very happy with this process. It's a long, lengthy process for a good reason, but in the end, I think we have a very good product, and I think it's a community asset now. So kudos to all the people out there who did their part to make this happen.
Thanks, Dave. And of course, I did step in it when I tried to acknowledge everyone. I didn't acknowledge the folks who just did the 45-minute presentation on the seeker. So I do want to thank you for that. So a big thank you again to LaBella Associates, Sergio Esteban and his team, Kathy Spencer and Mike Schaffron, who really spent a number of hours with us working through this. So thank you guys as well. Okay, with that, can I have a motion? I think I had a motion in a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? Motion carries. Okay.
Item 10A, 2014-4, calling for a public hearing on the matter of amending Town Code Chapter 235, Article 21, Signs and Tables A, B, C, and D.
Moved.
And a second?
Second.
Okay. Thank you. And again, this resolution looks similar to one we've done before. This is calling for a public hearing in the matter of amending the town code relative to signs, temporary signs. We went through this process over the last several months where there was a proposal made to amend the sign code, and we went through a public hearing. And this is an example where your town board listened to you, listened to the residents who came to our public hearing and some business owners, and had some great suggestions and some great revisions to make to the law. So what we did was, because we did make edits to the law after listening to your to the input, we decided to go through again and do another public hearing. And so it is, the updates are available in the clerk's office and online. And so this resolution sets another public hearing, so again, we can continue this dialogue and make sure we're crafting the best possible regulations we can. So the public hearing per this resolution will be on November 20th at 7:35. Any questions or comments from the board? No? Great, thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Item 10A, 2014-5, authorizing the contract for special testing work for the town of Arundecoit and building the Arundecoit Public Library.
So moved.
And a second? Okay, thank you. Again, this is another resolution relative to the construction of the new library on the Town Hall campus. Does anyone have any questions or comments about this? No? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Item 10A, 2014-6, amending the contract with Passero Associates for architectural services for the building of the Arundecoit Public Library.
Is there a motion?
Moved.
And a second? Okay, again, just like the other one, this is a resolution moving forward the construction of the library. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Item 10A, 2014-7, establishing the 2015 holiday schedule for all town of Arundecoit employees.
Can I have a motion?
Moved.
And a second?
Second.
And it's just as the clerk described, it's the 2015 holiday schedule that has been reviewed and approved by the collective bargaining units. Is that correct, Beth, in the town? So, all those in favor, or I'm sorry, any questions or comments? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Item 10A, 2014-8, authorizing the lease of a copier to be used by the Supervisor's Office, Comptroller's Office, Human Resources Department, and the Department of Public Works Administration in the Town Hall.
Can I have a motion?
Moved.
And a second?
Second.
Okay, and again, this resolution does this exactly as the clerk just outlined. This is to authorize the lease of a copy machine. That's really going to improve two things at Town Hall. Part of our operations is the efficiency of the operation upstairs, as well as the privacy, being able to use a copy machine for the Human Resources Department that is not also being used by the general public. So there's a number of benefits that we discussed at the workshop of this machine. So any questions or comments by the board? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Item 10A, 2014-9, authorizing placement of a stop sign.
Can I have a motion?
Moved.
And a second?
Second?
Okay, Chief, I'm going to ask you just a brief explanation of the resolution, please.
Absolutely. The police department received a petition signed by a number of residents on the Cinnabar Road and Montcalm Drive area, pardon me, for requesting a stop sign for Cinnabar Road. We know that is adjacent to a school area with the Iroquois Middle School and the Colebrook Elementary School. And in addition to the school hours, the playground utilization that is at that particular location. We conducted a traffic study on site. We went back and did a neighborhood canvass with the residents in the area to ensure that everyone had an opportunity to voice their opinion in this particular situation. And based upon the feedback from the neighborhood and the traffic study, we're recommending the placement of the stop sign at that location.
Thank you, Chief. Anybody have any questions or comments? No? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Item 10A, 2014-10, amending Town Code Chapter 165, pawnbrokers, secondhand dealers, and jewelry and coin exchange dealers.
Can I have a motion?
Moved.
And a second? Okay, thank you. Again, this is another fairly significant step that we're taking tonight to help protect our residents from those who wish to try to profit from their crimes in the town of Arundecoit. This legislation, we did a public hearing on this last month, and I'm going to just want to give a few highlights as to what this legislation does, and then I'll call on the police chief as well to give some thoughts. I also want to, before I get into that, thank a few people who put a lot of hard work and time into crafting this proposal. This really was a collaborative effort between the town of Arundecoit, the Arundecoit Police Department, the Department of Community Development, Nick Weatherby and his team, as well as Sandra Dorley in the Monroe County District Attorney's Office. We had worked together to craft this to make sure that we had the best regulations in place in Monroe County. What this legislation essentially does is a few things. It requires background checks and licensing of all pawn shop, secondhand dealers, and pawnbrokers in the town of Arundecoit. It prohibits dealers from purchasing any item from an individual under the age of 18. It requires dealers to wait a minimum of 14 days before destroying or disposing of any items, and allows the chief of police to extend that period for up to an additional 90 days. It requires dealers to verify the identification and contact information of all customers and maintain accurate, detailed, and photographic records of all items collected and sold. It requires dealers to report all items collected and sold to the Arundecoit Police Department, and it requires all items established to have been stolen to be turned over to the Arundecoit Police Department. And what this legislation essentially does is gives our police force the tools necessary to recover stolen property, which is critical, I think, in deterring crime. The law is the strongest regulation in Monroe County, and really acts as a deterrent to criminals who are trying to profit from their crimes, and it will also serve as a useful tool in being able to locate stolen property and return it to its rightful owner. Chief, did you have some words that you wanted to add and comments?
Sure. Well, I just think from the public hearing, you heard from the testimony of residents associated with, unfortunately, transactions that occurred as a result of their property being stolen from them, and the limited amount of database that was established to be able to record that those transactions and ultimately lead us to someone who was responsible for the thefts. Because of the time limit elapsing, the property had been discarded, and in many instances, due to precious metals, were melted down, and obviously heirlooms could not be returned to these individuals, as you heard them speak about that. Just today in the news, we hear of a report of an adjacent community that has a high-profile case where a particular item, a jewelry item, was to be pawned at another location, not within the town of Arundecoit, and as a result of reporting that data, they were able to successfully work on making an arrest associated with a home invasion in another community. So all of the safeguards that the town board has put into place, and I certainly commend Sergeant Bean and Mr. Weatherby and his staff associated with this, we're really providing our residents with a very important tool so that we can help safeguard them and their property and work with the individuals that have business establishments within the town so that we can continue with economic development but make sure that we protect the safety of our residents.
Thank you.
Chief, the county has, I think less than a year ago, passed a similar county law. Can you just, I guess, speak to how this builds on that and, I guess, gives you with even more tools to, I guess, recover stolen property?
The one major component to our legislation is the fact that every item and every transaction needs to be recorded. The county legislation has a $15, if you will, threshold for the interpretation as far as value of property. And by interpretation, it is open to someone's opinion. And in this case, every item is to be entered into the database. Every transaction is to be entered into the database regardless of its value. And so if I go into a particular establishment and someone indicates to me that it's worth $14 based upon their opinion, that particular item doesn't need to be entered into the database, therefore we would never know about that particular transaction. So that really helps protect our residents because regardless of what someone's opinion is about the value of a piece of property, it's going to be recorded, it's going to be photographed, it's going to be downloaded in a database that an individual can sit there with a police officer and review those transactions and be able to positively identify, hopefully, their property that unfortunately was taken from them.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from the board? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carried. And by the way, congratulations to Councilman Seeley who brought this legislation up forward a couple months ago to the board. So, good job.
Item 10A, 2014-11, declaring surplus 2 houses located at 97 and 105 Timrod Drive.
I have a motion
Moved.
and a second.
Second.
Okay. I'm going to call on Commissioner Pat Meredith to give an overview of what essentially the next three resolutions are about.
Yes, thank you. The next three resolutions are related to the demolition of two homes located at 97 and 105 Timrod Drive. The first resolution is declaring the physical materials such as the structure and their contents as surplus and of no value. The second resolution declares the removal of the two homes and converting the properties to passive recreation space as an unlisted action pursuant to seeker and shall be declared a negative declaration. The third resolution will award the contract for the removal of the homes to the lowest responsible bidder. Sealed bids were received and publicly opened and read on October 15th, 2014. The lowest responsible bidder was Empire Wrecking Company, Inc., in the amount of $60,260. Funds will be available in the general fund balance. There was four companies that did bid on the project. The range of costs was between the $60,000 and $90,000 range.
Great, thank you. Okay, and so this first resolution just declares the two houses located at those addresses surplus property. There was a motion and a second. Any questions or comments related to this? No? There was a motion and a second, correct?
Yes, there was.
All those in favor say by aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act, in regards to the demolition of two houses located at 97 and 105 Timrod Drive.
Can I have a motion? And a second? Thank you. Before I ask the town board to act on a declaration, I'd ask our town engineer, Kathy Spencer, again, to come forward and,
Very brave of you.
yes, I know.
Won't be 45 minutes.
Yeah, we're another 45 minutes.
Okay. We did review the proposed action demolition of 97 and 105 Timrod Drive in accordance with the State Environmental Quality Review Act. We determined it was an unlisted action under seeker and prepared the short environmental assessment form. We did not identify any significant adverse environmental impacts, and any potential impacts were deemed to be small. In Part 3 of the form, we did document some justification as to why those two potential small impacts were considered small. The impacts were regarding archaeological resources and potential hazardous conditions, but the conclusion was, as there were no potential adverse environmental impacts, we recommend issuance of a negative declaration for this project.
Great, thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? No? Pretty straightforward, thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Item 10A, 2014-13, authorizing the award of the Timrod Drive demolition and authorizing the transfer of the necessary funds from the general fund balance.
Can I have a motion? Moved. And a second?
Second.
All right, and this is the last resolution that actually authorizes the demolition of the houses. Any questions or concerns? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Item 10A, 2014-14, authorizing the supervisor to enter into an intermunicipal agreement with the Stormwater Coalition of Monroe County.
Can I have a motion?
Moved.
And a second?
Second.
Okay, I'm going to call on our DPW department to give a brief explanation. Bob Kiley?
Thank you. This resolution will approve the dispense of funds to participate into the Stormwater Coalition of Monroe County. Those funds are roughly about $12,000 for our annual fees that we pay to the county for services that they provide us. This is a really good benefit for the town. Just within this year, we have applied and received grant funding for more than $15,000 through the Stormwater Coalition of Monroe County. So honestly, this has already paid for itself this year.
Great. Thanks, Bob. Any questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Item 10A, 2014-15, accepting a completed rezoning application for 2180 East Ridge Road.
Is there a motion? And a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. This resolution is the first step in the rezoning process for the library on East Ridge Road. In order to rezone the property to facilitate the sale, there's a process by which the town board would accept an application from the town, and the application would then be submitted to the town planning board and the Monroe County Planning Department for review and comments, and then we'll be back to the town board for a public hearing at some point in the next couple of months. So this is the first step, like I said, of that. So this is just the town board acknowledging that a complete application has been received to rezone the property, and then refer the application to the town planning board for review. Any comments or questions? Sorry.
We have Ashley Champion here too, our deputy town attorney. If anybody has any questions, she's the one that's working on that end of the process. I just wanted to point that out for the board.
Okay.
Well, I just want to add that we did canvass the neighborhood a little bit. A couple of weeks ago, we walked through and talked to people. Now, the next step is the residents are going to get a letter in the surrounding area to, let them, because we talked to them about that, correct?
Correct. The next
Okay.
step in the process, as Adam laid out, it's now referred to the planning board for comment and referral. And Ashley, correct me where I'm wrong here. After they then have 60 days to make their recommendation to the town board as to regards to the rezoning. Then there will be a public hearing at the town board, and then you'll entertain a resolution on whether or not to rezone the property after the public
Okay.
hearing and after
At
the
that
the
point,
planning
then,
board's
they
referral.
get, they get the, okay.
That's right, yes. So
Okay.
they'll have to be, the actual public hearing, which will be when the application comes back
Comes
before
back,
this
okay.
board, will be noticed to the
Okay,
area.
good, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Ashley. Any other questions or comments, or anything, Nick or Ashley, that you wanted to add? No? Great. Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Motion carries. All right, great. That's the end of the agenda. Can I ask for a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And a second? All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? Motion carries. We'll see you back here on November 20th. We are adjourned.